Well, that should take care of them, the unbeatable Squirrel Girl said as she stood over a group of freshly defeated attackers. Another horde of vampires down for the count. Good work, everybody. As Squirrel Girl praised her army of rodent companions for their efforts, the tiny creatures began to chitter with delight. They would do anything for their human friend, Doreen Green, even risk their lives against the seemingly endless throng of nocturnal nightmares that had emerged after an ancient curse trapped New York City in a state of perpetual night. You've definitely earned a trip to Mr. Hickory's fresh roasted nut cart on the corner of 55th and... Before Squirrel Girl could finish that thought, her BFFF, best furry friend forever, Tippy Toe scurried past her fellow squirrels and climbed right onto Doreen's shoulder. As Tippy began to chirp into Squirrel Girl's ear, Doreen's ever-present smile dropped a bit. Wait, that can't be right, Squirrel Girl said. A giant squirrel fell out of the sky? Here in Central Park? Are you sure, Tippy? Tippy Toe leapt from Squirrel Girl's shoulder and bolted back towards the heart of the park. Before she disappeared into the woods, she turned around and beckoned for her friend to come along. Guess Mr. Hickory is gonna have to keep his nuts warm a little longer, Squirrel Girl said, shrugging as she followed Tippy Toe into the dark forest. The rest of the squirrels stayed close behind Doreen, ready to take on whatever threats might be lurking in the shadows. As soon as they reached a clearing, Squirrel Girl realized that Tippy Toe hadn't been exaggerating in the slightest. There, in the middle of a small impact crater, was the biggest squirrel Doreen had ever seen. Her furry friends surrounded the creature and stared in awe. But something was clearly wrong. The giant rodent was hurt. Bad. Excuse me, ma'am, Squirrel Girl said cautiously. You look like you could use a friend. The enormous squirrel replied, with pain in its voice. I am so far from home. Yet the scent of this realm seems oddly familiar. Tell me, to where have I fallen, dear child? You're on Earth. New York City, to be exact, Squirrel Girl responded proudly. Whoa, hold on. Did you just talk? Indeed, the creature said, lifting its massive head to get a better look at the curious human girl with a rodent's tail. I mean, I know you can talk to me, Squirrel Girl continued. I talk to squirrels all the time. It's one of my superpowers. But you weren't just chirping and chittering. You talked in English, like a person. The squirrels of Midgard do not have the ability to speak, the mysterious rodent said. What a shame. I know, right? Squirrel Girl mused. I'm the only one who gets to enjoy all of their stories. Guess I'm just lucky. I have a story to tell as well, the oversized squirrel said. But sadly, there is very little luck in it. Ooh, I wish I had some popcorn, Squirrel Girl said as she sat cross-legged on the ground next to her new friend, eager to learn more. Her squirrel companions gathered around and listened intently. My name is Ratatoskr, the creature began. I hail from the Golden Kingdom once known as Asgard, though my true home is in the branches of Yggdrasil, the World Tree. Asgard, Squirrel Girl exclaimed. Are you friends with Thor? Because I totally am. Squirrel Girl exclaimed. Are you friends with Thor? Because I totally am. I have known the god of thunder since he was just a boy, Ratatoskr continued. It was my sworn duty to climb the World Tree, delivering messages across the 10 realms. It was a simple life, but one I took great pride in. I sought no glory, and I posed no threat. Or so I believed. Here comes the part where Loki does something nasty, right? Squirrel Girl asked excitedly, chomping down on a handful of acorns that she had found scattered on the ground nearby. I have my qualms with the trickster for his treatment of Yggdrasil, Ratatoskr said. But according to a vision I had, I do not believe it was Loki who laid me low. In fact, it was two Midgardians who sought to end my days, a mortal sorcerer in a metal mask and the Lord of Vampires himself. Yikes, Squirrel Girl yelped. The two must have conjured a spell to rip me from my beloved Yggdrasil. Ratatoskr said, trailing off as she considered what had occurred. And then, you crash-landed here, Squirrel Girl finished, right in the heart of vampire territory. I bet they were planning to send in an undead army to take you prisoner. Or worse. But why? I mean, sure, squirrels are some of the toughest fighters ever, and it's nice to see someone finally realizing that. But there are so many other threats that these jerks are up against. Aside from your obvious awesomeness, what makes you so special? My horn, Ratatoskr said, motioning to the long wooden tusk protruding from her forehead. Yeah, Squirrel Girl said. I was going to ask about that. I just assumed you were some sort of magical squirrelicorn or something. The horn is made from a branch of Yggdrasil itself, Ratatoskr said. It is imbued with the world tree's life-giving power. Should it pierce the vampire king's heart, it would likely end even his eternal reign. In order to remove such a risk, they are undoubtedly seeking to remove me from play. Well, they'll have to go through us first, Squirrel Girl exclaimed, lifting her fist in the air triumphantly. Her squirrel companions all squeaked with joy. But silence quickly fell once more, as the leaves around them began to rustle. Suddenly, several vampires lunged out from the woods, hissing and baring their sharp teeth as they rushed towards Ratatoskr. You know the drill, gang, Squirrel Girl shouted to her tiny squirrel friends. The squirrels jumped into action, scampering forward to meet their attackers. In a frenzy of teeth and claws, the vampires soon found themselves overpowered by the bushy-tailed battalion. Every time they managed to shake off one rambunctious rodent, 3 more took its place. I'd bet on buckteeth over fangs any day, Squirrel Girl cheered as her fearsome foes fled back into the darkness. But before the hairy heroes could celebrate another hard-earned victory, the next wave of vampiric villains emerged from the forest, this time nearly doubled in number. At the center of the horde stood a pale-skinned man in a pitch-black suit and a blood-red cape adorned with gold ornamentation. His commanding presence made it instantly clear that he was the one in charge. The vampires around him eagerly awaited his orders. Stand aside, child, the vampire said to Squirrel Girl, his voice as cold as ice. This creature belongs to me. I don't know who you think you are, buddy, Squirrel Girl said defiantly, but Ratatoskr is with us now. You don't get to hurt her. I wouldn't dream of it, the vampire said. I have far more important plans for that mangy beast. You, however, shall not be as fortunate. So swears Dracula. Dracula? A bewildered Squirrel Girl muttered. No, it can't be. Oh, it is, Dracula responded with a grin, his fangs glistening in the light of the blood moon. And you, my dear, shall be the next to join my eternal legion. With a wave of his hand, Dracula unleashed his vampire horde upon Squirrel Girl. She dodged and leaped as quick as she could, hoping to prevent them from sinking their sharp teeth into her flesh. Don't let them get to Ratatoskr, Squirrel Girl yelled, clearly more concerned about her newly arrived ally than about herself. Even though her rodent army vastly outnumbered the vampire, Squirrel Girl quickly realized that her forces were gravely outmatched. These were Dracula's most elite soldiers, and Doreen knew that she and her friends were in over their heads. Tippy, call in reinforcements, Squirrel Girl shouted. With a loud series of squeaks, Tippy-Toe beckoned forth every animal that called Central Park home, from rats and raccoons to frogs and felines. As they skittered across the ground towards the unsuspecting vampires, another wave of animals swooped down from the skies. "I didn't know you could speak bird, Tippy," Squirrel Girl exclaimed, genuinely surprised to see the large feathered flock furiously pecking at her foes. Tippy-Toe shrugged with confusion. "Those creatures are not of this realm," Ratatosker said. "The ravens serve Loki himself, and the crows belong to Hela. Apparently, Dracula is not the only one searching for my whereabouts." "Hey, we'll take all the help we can get," Squirrel Girl said, leaping forward to join the flurry of teeth and beaks and claws and talons. Squirrel Girl's furry friends continued to do everything in their power to distract the undead warriors from their true prey. But then, without warning, every one of Doreen's beloved squirrels abruptly stopped in their tracks. Guys?" Squirrel Girl said. "What's going on?" "You are not the only one who can speak to rodents," Dracula mused. "In the past, I have reserved this talent for bats and rats, but I suppose it works on squirrels just as well. And I, for one, shall enjoy the irony of what is about to unfold." Tippy-Toe and her fellow squirrels turned to face Squirrel Girl, their eyes glowing a sinister red. Squirrel Girl gasped in horror as she realized that Dracula had somehow pitted her best friends against her. Although she herself was not under the Vampire King's thrall, Squirrel Girl still found herself unable to move, completely paralyzed by the shock of the moment. "No, please!" Squirrel Girl shouted, as the ravenous rodents began to descend upon her. But before the tiny terrors could devour Doreen, a powerful blast erupted from the skies, knocking the squirrels back and breaking them free from Dracula's control. "Looks like you've got a rodent problem, kid," a semi-robotic voice said. "Lucky for you, I happen to be on pest control duty." Iron Man descended from above and landed on one side of Squirrel Girl. On her other side, Moon Knight glided onto the scene. The two heroes had arrived just in the nick of time. "I'm so glad you guys are here," Squirrel Girl gushed with glee. "We were trying to rescue this giant Asgardian squirrel when Dracula and his army attacked us. I don't know how, but he turned my little buddies against me. For a moment there, I really thought it was all over." "It is," Iron Man said as he blasted back a few more vampires with his repulsors. "We're getting you out of here. Now. Not without Ratatosker," Squirrel Girl said. "Yeah, about that," Moon Knight replied, tossing a few crescent-shaped shuriken at the oncoming attackers. "I don't see any giant squirrels around here. No Dracula either. And they say I'm the crazy one." Squirrel Girl looked towards the site where Ratatosker had landed earlier, and was shocked to find that her new friend had gone missing. And Moon Knight was right about Dracula's disappearance as well. "She was just here, I swear," Squirrel Girl cried. "Dracula must have escaped with her when we weren't looking. We have to go after them." "Not a chance," Iron Man said. "We've barely got the means to fight off a handful of regular fangers. We're definitely not ready to face off against Dracula." "Not yet," Moon Knight added, as if he knew something the others did not. "But when the time comes," Iron Man continued, "we're going to need every ally we can find, alive. That includes you. Now, come with me." Iron Man lifted into the air, grabbing Squirrel Girl under the arms and taking her with him. "And consider this your lucky day." "Wait, no," Squirrel Girl pleaded. Not only was she abandoning Ratatosker, but her squadron of squirrels was being left behind to fend for themselves as well. Only Tippy-Toe had managed to climb aboard the Iron Man Express before it took flight. Squirrel Girl's gaze stayed fixed on the park below until her tiny allies had faded completely from sight. With a heavy heart, she turned her attention to the blood moon hanging over her beloved city. "Trust me, kid," Iron Man said, as they flew together towards the safety of Avengers Tower. "This is for the best." The armored Avenger seemed strangely confident about that fact. But for the first time she could remember, Squirrel Girl wasn't feeling quite so optimistic.